Is the archetype of everything that is wrong on the high end. On the low end, we've begun to already get a preview of the graves of greed. In the tar sands extraction in northern Alberta, this lush, vast, and magnificent boreal forest has been turned into a barren industrial landscape of open pit mines and toxic tailing ponds in a desperate attempt to extract oil driven by the lust for profit and our collective addiction to oil. Our way of life authorizes a continuing holocaust of extinction and endangerment. Just in the last few years, the Baiji dolphin, gone. West African black rhino, gone. Golden toad and Pyrenean ibex and Spix's macaw, all gone. The World Conservation Union's 2008 red list of threatened species includes a tenth of all birds evaluated across the globe, a fifth of mammals, a third of fish and reptiles, 40% of invertebrates, and 70% of the plants evaluated. And we could go on, as James Spade does. He talks about the Earth's stratospheric ozone layer being severely depleted before we discovered ozone depletion. Human activities have pushed atmospheric carbon dioxide up by more than a third and have started in earnest the dangerous process of global warming. Everywhere the Earth's ice fields are melting. Industrial processes are fixing nitrogen, making it biologically active at a rate equal to nature's. One result is the development of more than 200 dead zones in the oceans due to over-fertilization. All of which is to say that Jeremiah's lament has become all too real. Jeremiah's lament. Take up weeping and wailing for the mountains, lamentation for the wilderness because they are laid waste so that no one passes through. Both the birds of the air and the animals have fled and are gone. Now, of course, the greed that is causing this disaster is unequally spread across the globe. We in the U.S. have by far the largest ecological footprint, and those of us who are economically privileged within our society have the biggest footprint of all. So obviously there are fundamental issues of justice as well as sustainability. We're not only robbing the earth, we are robbing the poor. Here's a map from Al Gore's Global Warming Project which shows how unevenly distributed the per capita responsibility for emitting CO2 in the atmosphere is. All the red zones are in the north, the highest emissions. Increasingly, the landscape of our world is characterized by vast economic inequality side by side as wealth polarities grow, as in these examples from Caracas, Venezuela. This brings us to another reason why we need to confront the graves of greed, the persistent and deepening economic and social stratification around the globe. This atlas of global inequality shows countries colored red have less than 1/4 of what the world mean income is, while countries colored dark blue have more than 4 times that mean income. That would be us. Making poverty history, not the way we're going. This kind of inequality is both just and unsustainable. Are we able to cue up that second? A little bit more from the film Home now around the specifically social aspects of the ecological crisis. Obviously, here in the United States, we haven't solved problems of inequality either. As the economy contracts, the poor are always the first victims, and disparity intensifies. And obviously, poverty, both at home and abroad, have specifically racial and gender dimensions. The social architecture of wealth and poverty today keeps people as segregated today as Jim Crow did half a century ago. The social architecture of economic discrimination, whether that's the immigrant, the homeless, the low-wage worker, whether they are invisible or criminalized. Despite all of this, of course, we middle-class people keep consuming, endlessly rearranging deck chairs on our Titanic. Our affluenza makes the poverty of others inevitable. Let us be very, very clear about that. But just as there is an ecological reckoning, so too there is a social reckoning that comes inevitably. no justice, no peace. And believe me, friends, this is no theoretical rant. Jeff and I have seen our city, Los Angeles, burned twice in our lifetime. Thought by so many to be the bling-bling capital of the world, the center of the fantasy machine. Twice in our lifetime, we've seen it torched as a result of racial and economic inequality. In 1965 and again in 1992, which at that time was the largest civil disturbance in the history of the United States. The result of all of these ecological and economic factors is that we are experiencing an epidemic of three primary pathologies in our culture, and equally in our churches. We are alienated from our families, our neighborhoods, and our traditions because we're overworked in order to feed our overconsumption. That's anxiety and alienation. We are addicted to money, to work, and to stuff. And we're deeply anxious about whether there will be enough, even as we already have more than our share. Are we in a position to fire up that last excerpt or no?
I think so.
That would be the starting at 1:15. We're going to let, if this works, we're going to let the home film sort of summarize these, what we might call these talking points. And again, friends, I know that none of this is a news flash to us, but this is what we have to become literate in if we are going to be agents of transformation. This is what we have to be talking about with everybody.
We have a shy projector.
A shy projector?
Yeah, it's kind of shy.
All right.
It's,
Here we go.
there it is.
In order for any of the rest of this weekend to make sense, we have to be clear on the concept that we are in an end game. Even mainstream economists now are beginning to acknowledge our plight. William Ryder would be a case in point. 2005, he wrote these words, the operating principles of capitalism have become dangerously obsolete. You think? The House of Economics is due for a major renovation. Most Americans, he said, sense that something is wrong. But the hunger is unnamed, and it seems part of what the system demands. The only remedy, we are told, is more. I think that's a pretty accurate take on the culture we're in. The economy of more has turned upon itself, tearing the social fabric and weakening family and community life, piling up discontents alongside growing plenty. As it presently functions, capitalism encourages human pathology, embodying irresponsibility as the central requirement of its operating routine. And then comes Ryder's remarkable conclusion. Above all, he says, above all what we need is we need a new story.